Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. This is the regular day on Wednesday. I'm glad. Thank you for joining me on Monday. If you were here for the special episode for Earth Day, and it was really fun to chat with Lindsay on that. Today, I am excited to bring you someone I met just last week, actually last Thursday on my birthday. Yay! Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Thank you. I kept telling everybody all day, are you going to come to my birthday party tonight? Which was the reception for the conference. But I was hosting a food and beverage tour for IAC, and we went to this fabulous place called Natirar and met this woman, Melinda Hopkins, who is the farm manager for Natirar. She's farm and production manager of the farm at Pendry Natirar Hotel and 90 Acres Restaurant, which is in Gladstone-Peapack, New Jersey. So
that's a mouthful.
I mean, it is a mouthful, but that's okay. It's exciting. I mean, and I need to find the photos and pull them up. But I mean, we met you in your element. We walked out of a restaurant and we were standing in a farm, and which is outside of this. Yes. And it was amazing. And so can you tell us what your job is, and then tell us how you got into this job and in farming.
Sure. So I've been on this property for about 18 months. I started last fall. So I've been here for a full season and moving into my second season. I really grew up in this lifestyle, born and raised in New Jersey, the Garden State, and we grew and harvested and cooked food just as a family lifestyle. And I didn't really think anything more of it than that. I was an artist, a choreographer, a dancer. I went to American Academy of Dramatic Arts for theater. I started teaching theater and started my own theater company in 1991. But then when I started my own family, we began our own landscape design company, and my roots of how I grew up became my love affair again. And we moved into a farming community in Chester, New Jersey, and landscape design was extended into adding gardens for people and helping them preserve farmland. And I naturally grew into becoming a farmer and a production manager.
Wow, that's awesome. And I mean, the fact that you grew up with this and then you changed careers and doing this and just coming to this, that's amazing. I love it. And I remember asking you, how long have you been doing this? And you said since you could walk.
Yeah. I think it's a lot about listening to the world and what's around you and following your path and not necessarily giving up on what your dreams are, but integrating them into what's around you. And being an artist and being a cultivator has given me this opportunity on this property to create immersions and experiences with the farm and the gardens to be able to educate and create a wellness program as far as sustainability and wellness and being outside and understanding that from the beginning of the food industry, the farming side of it, there's so much for us to create, learn, and grow from before it goes into the kitchen.
Yeah. Well, and I was really intrigued by, your whole presentation. So everyone, we went to Natirar to check it out, and we did a 30-minute tour of this farm, learning all of the different, how you were growing. And I've got to figure out how to pull my pictures up here. you really impressed upon us too, the fact that you were working directly with the chefs to decide what was in season and what they could use in the kitchen of the restaurant and into the upcoming spa and to the bar program. It was really interesting so can you share with us how that collaboration works, and you as a farmer really, because we all think farmers are just, they're growing food and they're putting it on a truck and shipping it to the grocery store, right? We're not thinking that it's going right to, you said farm to table, farm to spa, farm to bar. And I love that. So can you share how that has evolved?
So I think there's two topics to hit here. The first one is absolutely seasonality and teaching through growing in the moment what we can actually eat that time of year. And on top of that, how healthy it is for us to eat seasonally with what is growing outside naturally and what we should be eating from that instead of just eating whatever we want, because we have grocery stores that can ship in product from all over the world. So we have this luxury of having everything at our fingertips. But I think growing and eating seasonally is a lesson for all of us that in the wintertime, there's cold crop. It's filled with these amazing sugars that are keeping it alive. That creates a whole different palate than it does moving into the spring when you have all of these baby greens and root vegetables coming out of the soil, and that our bodies are really calling for those elements, just like the earth is, that we should be recognizing the seasons and how we're treating ourselves in those seasons. So that, as a farmer, as a cultivator, was so interesting to me to be able to bring that into our kitchens and for them to be able to highlight and utilize that. And then on top of that, being a farmer and seeing my products going directly into the kitchen instead of going into a holding tank, so to speak, dry storage or cool storage. They're ordering what they need the day before on our homegrown list, and we're harvesting and into the kitchen the next morning, and they're utilizing the plant as a whole. We don't have any leftovers from we're harvesting. If there's something that they don't want to plate or utilize, it gets composted, and it either goes to our soil compost or it goes into our pastures for our animals. So it really is very all-encompassing.
I'm scrolling through here all the photos that I took, and I'm going to make everybody sick. But by scrolling, good, I want to find the compost pile picture that I took. Oh yeah, there it is. It's going into this compost pile. Right.
So anything that the kitchen can't utilize, we have a few different ways of repurposing it. And the compost piles are a huge part of our farming practice, because soil is really what is the foundation of what we're utilizing to grow our seeds. So on top of what the kitchen is giving us, we also get all of the clippings and all of the leaves cleanup from the park that we're affiliated with. So the benefit of all of this sustainable recycling benefits the farm without even having to work at it.
That's awesome, because, and then you're doing all kinds of different things. And you said, and then I was bringing it up in the presentation last week after I met with you, that like it's such rich soil from the composting, because one property I know in England, they said their golf course is like, stop giving it to us because it's making our grass grow too fast, that we have to cut the lawn too much more fast often. So, yeah.
So the practice of restorative farming is about utilizing everything that you have at your fingertips. So I'll give you an example. We had a pasture last year for our flock of sheep that they fed in. And in the fall, we put cover crop in there, which is utilizing seed to add nutrients and nitrates to the soil. So we put in daikon radish and white clover and some winter rye. And now the sheep are back in that field eating the cover crop and being fed. and fertilizing our soil even more. And then in the next couple weeks, we will spade it and add our sweet corn and our pumpkin patch. And we didn't have to spend a dime doing it. So it was restored naturally and our animals got to benefit from it as well. So this same concept with the compost, where everything that goes into the kitchen or into our spa or into the restaurant for the bars, if it's not utilized, it gets utilized back on the farm.
That's awesome. And so it's complete full circle.
Complete full circle. Spa is going to be opening with the hotel this coming fall, and we're going to be doing farm to spa as well as farm to table. So we're growing eucalyptus and rose geranium and jasmine and straw flower, and they'll be utilized in the mud compounds for the spa. And then all of the eucalyptus they use in the steam rooms will be put in baskets and brought back to the farm and composted and go full circle again. So the lessons about what people are getting on the property is part of the wellness initiative here.
Right. That's very cool. Now, I want to go back to the farming practices because the regenerative, and I've had a couple people on the show talk about regenerative agriculture. And apparently at the Natural Products Expo, it was a big term used on even prepackaged foods that are coming out into the marketplace. But you have you're using a specific one called silvo pasture farming. Can you explain what that is?
Absolutely. So silvo pasture farming is actually a form of agroforestry. And basically what it means is you're not stripping the land of the trees and shrubs and natural land exist, and you're farming around that. What does that do for our property and our farms? It holds the soil because we have large root bases. It creates natural shade and protection for our animals in the pastures, even our bees, our beehives. They get a natural protection from having woodlands around them and the forestry that goes along with that. So on top of keeping it, you can tap the maples, you can utilize it for foraging. You have protection for mushrooms, and you're creating an addition to the ecosystem. Farming industry in general has learned from its own practices that for production, it's about figuring out how to be more sustainable, that buzzword that we hear all the time, more sustainable in our natural practices, collecting rainwater, utilizing soil, making sure that we're being regenerative in our thought process, that everything kind of in the circle of life goes back into the earth.
Okay, you just said rainwater. Did you teach us something about collecting our own rainwater last week? The benefits of that?
Yes. So I, with some of the children and schools that come on the property and classes that I've taught in the past, I've given them this science experiment, so to speak, where you're going to have two separate pots of vegetables or flowers, and you're going to take your tap water and you're going to water one of them with that. And you're going to collect rainwater and water one pot with that. And they grow about 70% faster with the rainwater. And why is that? Because they are getting the direct nutrients from the rain instead of our rainwater going through the ground and through the systems and being stripped of the vitamins. And so you're wetting they're drinking, but they're not drinking the same type of nutrients as they would from the direct rainwater. That's why when it rains, the next day it feels like everything explodes.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Wow. Including the weeds.
Including the weeds, exactly. Okay, so how has sustainable practices on your farm influenced the food and beverage experiences at 90 Acres restaurant? And I know you mentioned also having conversations with chefs like, well, I want this. And you're like, well, I can't grow that right now. Right. How does that influence the sustainable practice influence the restaurant?
So it is a collaborative relationship between the farm and the kitchen. We are being very thoughtful on what we're creating for our guests so that they understand, again, seasonality, what they should be eating in real time, what the difference is between eating a carrot that's grown here instead of grown and packaged and shipped and refrigerated and brought in and re-refrigerated. The freshness, the vitality of everything is much different. There are lessons back and forth. We were walking outside with the executive chef a couple days ago, and I was showing him the garlic that was in the ground. In New Jersey, we plant our garlic in October to start, and he pulled a garlic stem out of the ground, and he said, "This is amazing green garlic." Well, I didn't know that he wanted the garlic in that stage or could even utilize it in that stage. So now we've gone from growing garlic that we were looking at harvesting the scapes in May, and then the garlic would be harvested in late August, and they could either have it fresh or we could also dry it. But now we have a third stage where all of a sudden garlic becomes relevant in the kitchen early spring with a different utilization. So them coming out into the farm and showing us product in a, I guess, young stage or early age stage benefits us because now we have a longer reason to have product in the grounds. And then twofold, they'll come out and we'll show them product and they'll say, "Oh, we had no idea this grew wild," or that we could have cold crop put in raised beds and manipulate the season and get things earlier. So there's a nice dance back and forth between these two departments. And I am a true believer that you are what you do. We need to exercise practices. We can't put it on paper and think that we're going to understand how to do it. I think it's about the process. And like we've all said, the food and beverage industry is about fun and connection and family and community. And one thing that we all have in common. So it's been really nice for us to expand what we know and learn from each other, and who knows where it will go. I mean, the spa and farm concept came from our spa manager saying, "Is there something here that we could be practicing as well?"
That's awesome. And I mean, and that's made me
here.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty cool because, and I was really intrigued. And I think I mentioned to you, there's a woman in Atlanta who started a garden just for the bartenders during COVID. And it was her way of helping them, one, get out into the garden and grow some herbs and spices for their drinks that they're bringing to the bars. But it also is at the same time opening up this garden in a rural or in a very central part of the city as well, bringing some green space to it. And it's just taken off. It's been really cool.
Yeah, well, I remember you discussing when you were on the property with a few of the other colleagues about them saying, "Oh, we don't have the space to do something like this."
Right.
I will tell you that all you need is a window box or a pot. You don't need a field. You don't even need a garden. You can think outside of the box. You can use container growing, and you can really be anywhere to be able to have benefits of growing fresh organic products. I know Tiffany and company in Manhattan just put apiaries on top of their building to be able to help promote more cultivating in the city.
Wow.
Bees can fly up to 20 miles away to harvest and come back. So you can really think outside the box and add to the culture of the farming in general. Connecting farmer and ways of being able to do things is on the screen. It can be along a sidewalk, can be a parking lot. So it's really inspiring the initiative and teaching these techniques that are a little outside of the box to allow people to know that, right, we are what we do. So if we connect with this, you will probably learn a way to be able to capture this desire and need to have fresh produce, fruit, herbs, flora, and bring it into the design of your business.
That's awesome. I mean, and there's a guy in Detroit, I'm going to remove that. There's a guy in Detroit that has bees in the D. And so he's implemented when I interviewed him, like 40 different apiaries on top of buildings in downtown Detroit. And the restaurants and the convention centers are using those. So I love that Tiffany and Company is doing that. You're growing 200 different varieties of produce. I mean, and I know there was one when you were standing by that arch, that picture was, you were right next to that was blackberries and raspberries and blueberries. And what else are you growing?
So to expand on 200 varieties, what will help you understand that is just in our blackberry, we have 4 different varieties. Just in the kale that we grow, we have 7 varieties. The tomatoes, we have 25 varieties. So when we say variety, it's not 200 products, but it's various varieties within the products that we're growing. And again, seasonally, right? So in the wintertime, we're really only growing in the greenhouse. We're doing some cold crops in our raised beds, but we're really utilizing that time of year for them to use their pantry, right? The potatoes, the garlic, the squashes, delicata, butternut, the things that we can store over wintertime. They're utilizing that along with some fresh produce from the greenhouse. And then when we go into spring, summer and fall, it's really more like 6 seasons than 4, because we have so much that happens in such a short period of time. New Jersey explodes for about 5 months. So we do early spring, early summer, late summer, early fall, and winter, which makes a lot more sense for our chefs because we want to highlight all those changes. So we have a lot of leafy greens coming up right now. You have the Swiss chard, arugula, different kales. We've got our herbs coming up. We have our potatoes in the ground, and we'll start to bring in our early spring crop, which will be a very different crop, which will be more eggplants and summer squashes. So that's really how that 200 number came in, because people will say, we love your tomatoes, and they don't realize that there's dozens of tomato varieties that they can experience between the heirlooms and the cherries and the grapes, our aromas that we grow for our pizzas, and the education level that I take for granted. But it's so it's so inspiring for me to be able to walk around with people and them say, well, what is bramble? And then
well, what is bramble? Yeah. What is,
that your raspberries and blackberries grow on bramble, and they're a perennial that we get year after year that we can expand and grow on this product, and then hopefully be moving into the future of having pick your own opportunities, not just the food going into our kitchens.
Well, and the fact that you also said too on the tour that annuals versus perennials, I thought it was really interesting that perennials are so much better because you're not having to re-till the soil all the time and digging up things, and tell me if I'm wrong, re-digging the ground. They know where they're supposed to grow, or I say that. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the amazing thing about perennials is that for the most part, you're getting that harvest year after year without having to add seed to your soil. It's going to come back year after year. Things will get woody. Things will die off. You do need to rejuvenate. We add to our bramble. We add to our blueberry. We have mulberry trees on the property. That's part of our silvopasturing practices. And they're going to give you bounty year after year. The same with something like rhubarb, asparagus. They're always going to come back. But the root vegetables, the leafy greens, our squashes, all of those things are annuals in this area. They're going to die off in the wintertime, and you need to spade and reseed again. So moving into more of a perennial-based farm for me and for our farmers is a more sustainable practice. But of course, we're going to grow annuals as well. So we have the varieties for our kitchens and our wellness and education practices.
So education practices too. I think it's really important because what you're doing has impacted the local community. And I mean, we were at a convention, and there were 30 of us that came to learn, all in the hospitality, all in food and beverage from around the world. And you provided us this tour, but you're also doing it for small groups in your culinary kitchen that you can do classes in, and then also students in the local school system, right?
Absolutely. So we have local community groups coming out all the time that are benefiting from our cooking school, which is an amazing aspect of the property as well. You can either go online and book a public class and you'll see the menu that you're going to be taking, or you can book it privately and do it just for your group and make a customized menu. But for the farm, the added bonus is that we would like people to come out, harvest their own product, see it in its element, and then bring it into the cooking school and utilize it in the menu that they're going to create that day. So they're really starting to understand where the product's coming from, how it's taken care of, what it looks like, hopefully taking that fear out of growing, where I can't tell you how many people tell me I don't have a green thumb or I can't do this. Again, we are what we do. So if we practice it, we learn it, we see it in its element, it might take some of that fear away to see what it feels like to put some seed in a pot or in a window box or in a garden bed and be able to practice this at home with your families. Coming to this property for us is giving you a moment in time to connect a family, to celebrate something, to benefit your own wellness, to learn, but to bring it home and practice it there, have it part of your lifestyle is really the end goal.
Right. No, I love that. And I mean, I've just got herbs in little basket or bags out in the back or bins out in the back. We've got deer and raccoons. So I'm afraid to put anything else out at this point, but it is bringing it back to to home. And if you're teaching it to kids and to their parents at the same time, I think it's an even added bigger benefit, which brings me to sustainability. And why do you think it's crucial that we start farming in the way that you're doing, or just thinking about sustainability practices and what we can do in adopting missions that help us further our own goals? Why is that important?
I think sustainability has become a little bit of a buzzword. I have a lot of corporations and organizations that will come out to the property for the day for meetings and experiences and food and beverage experiences. And when they come out to the farm and I start talking about sustainability just as an organic practice, they want to figure out how to adopt this, right? And bring it to their. And again, it's about exercising it. We can say buzzwords like rain collection or composting, and you see it on a farm because it's an organic way that we are working, establishing, and taking care of our product. But to bring that back to a corporate property, to bring that back to your home means something different, right? So I think people are trying to figure out what it means. Everybody wants to be part of it because we have these younger generations that want to take care of the planet, want to be green forward. They want the things that in representing to be in that mindset. So I think sustainability to become a lifestyle practice, not a department, not a new HR, not something that exists because it's a box that we need to check. It's like being a part of a community or being part of an organization, going and doing things and practicing them and making them part of your lifestyle is going to make us more sustainable in the action. And the more that we do, the more we're going to understand and the more we're going to see what we can utilize to make things be full circle. And again, I think have fun with it. It doesn't need to be so serious.
So kind of on that note, and I know we've talked about working with the chefs, but how have you seen them transform by looking at it from that perspective?
I think the number one thing that they see is how to utilize product in the now. So if we're succession planting, which means we're going to plant a crop row every 2 weeks, 3 or 4 times. So as we're harvesting, we have that product ongoing instead of doing a whole crop line and a large yield coming out at the same time. But you still have product that you have to harvest, regardless if the kitchen's ready for it or not. So I think what they've learned over the years is if I'm bringing in or the team's bringing in yellow squash and there's an abundant yield, they need to pivot and they need to figure out how to use that product besides the ratatouille they were going to make with it. Right. And I think that it's taught them how to preserve, how to figure out canning and jarring. An example yesterday with my executive chef, he saw our lovage, which is a perennial herb that comes up naturally. And it was a little more mature than he wanted it. So he said, harvest it and I'll make vinegar out of it. So I think a lot of it is about clay, right? Is about saying, okay, this might be too mature, or we might want to not use this on a plate, but can we extract something from it? Can we utilize the essence? Can we mix it with something else where, you know, again, the product can always go back into composting or for our animals, but how much fun for them to be able to experiment with product and utilize it in different ways. Right. So again, I think a lot of it is about the banter back and forth and the relationship, and farmers and chefs weren't really in the same place at the same time for a very long time. Farmers wake up early in the morning, they're working until sundown. Chefs come in about the same time and they're working into the evening. So our lives now crossing and becoming a part of each other's work ethic has really created this great artistic venue for us.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I mean, because, and I was just going to ask you on the flip side is what have you learned from working with the chefs, being a farmer and working with the chefs? And I think you kind of just said that too, right? Anything else?
I mean, farming is a practice that has been handed down for hundreds and hundreds of years. And we get scared. I don't want to say we get scared, but we will hold our tongues because there is a lot of ways to practice, just like there's a lot of ways to do a lot of things, but everybody thinks they're doing it the right way. So for me as a farmer to have chefs go out and say, I want the baby radish. I want the carrots before they're this length. I want the arugula baby leaves is nice for us because we have a harvest earlier. If they do mature, they're still going to utilize them, but in a different way. And we start to see product as a longer timeline for us to be able to utilize it instead of just seeing it as we see it in the grocery stores. That you have your bundle of carrots, you have your head of romaine. We're playing with the chefs and them taking this product and making amazing food experiences for us teaches the farmers that product takes different stages and how can we utilize it, even to the point where when it's bolting or flowering, can we utilize that product as well? Like the executive chef said, harvest the scapes off the garlic, but you know what? Leave some to flour because we'll use the flour too.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, all right. Now I want to jump back to the animals. So you have what I saw was chickens and sheep. What other animals do you have on the farm? And it's a 12-acre farm, right?
It's about 12 acres.
Okay.
It might be extended even more than that because of the forestry around us.
Okay.
But we have 160 free-range chicken.
Okay.
We'll be adding 50 new babies the beginning of July. They'll be shipped 24 hours old, and we'll have to teach them how to drink and eat and integrate them into the chicken yard with all of the adult chickens. And they'll start laying eggs about 8 months in. So we have a very large free-range egg gather for our kitchens. Also, the education of the difference between free-range chickens and chickens that are kept in coops.
Right.
Our chickens get to eat the worms and the bugs and the dirt and all of the things that they should be eating during the day on top of their feed. And then, like you mentioned, we have our flock of sheep. We're up to 10 now. We had 5 babies over the springtime to add to our flock. And we just had them sheared. And the wool is being donated to a nonprofit organization called Blink Now. So that will be shipped overseas. And those villages in Nepal will be able to create their own product from the wool. And then we're hoping full circle that the product will come back to the property and we'll be able to show our guests what was made from the wool from our sheep. So that's really the mission with our sheep right now, besides them being our farming practices. And then we have our beehives. We have about 40,000 bees. We did about 80 pounds of honey this past harvest. And we're hoping to add to the farm as far as flora and the product that they need to feed off of, to hopefully get up to about 12 hives over the next few years. And then all of their product, their propolis, their honey, all of that is utilized on the property as well. If it's not going into the kitchens, it will eventually be going into the spa, especially the propolis, which is like a very hard, gummy, sticky product that the bees organically make to keep their hive closed and shut. But it's an anti-inflammatory. It's got amazing health benefits. People can take it pill form, or it can be added to different spa products. So we're hoping over the next couple of years to implement that as well.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Is that pollinating our farm?
Right. And I was just going to ask you, are there specific types of bees that you're looking for that need to pollinate the farm, that you need to pollinate, or are they all the same kind of bee?
It is. So there are many different varieties. We're obviously working with honeybees. There's even different varieties of honeybees. There's a Russian honeybee. There's a natural honeybee that came up from the south. We're not talking about wasps and hornets and the bees that don't harvest.
Okay.
There are bumblebees that you will see around, especially on a farm. But again, they're not harvesting. So it is the true honeybee that we're utilizing in these hives.
Okay. That's so cool. And you've got the full garment to go up and get the honey out, to harvest the honey, the bee.
Yeah. So I got my certification last spring when I knew I would be adding hives to the farm. And we have Somerset, Morris County, New Jersey Beekeeping Association as our support. So they will be adding the educational element to our property. Okay. Once the wellness program opens up. We will also be doing classes on harvesting the honey, and then education of what products will be going into the spa, and then fun things like honey tasting and making things from the honeycomb and making natural candles from the beeswax. So you take one element of the farm and you can go in so many different directions that it really becomes fun, creative, interesting, ties into my artistic side of being able to figure out how to implement education and wellness in a creative, fun, experimental way.
It opens my eyes to so many different things, because it's using chefs, it's using meeting planners, it's using teachers, it's using farmers in a variety of different capacities to educate us all on our earth, on the food that we eat, on the animals that we raise. There's so many applications to this onto the products that people make and sell, just from things that are grown on a farm. Find it so intriguing and inspiring that so many things come from just products that are on the farm, right? Like the jobs that come from it, the education that comes from it, and the collaboration.
I think that it's about getting people outside and realizing that everything is connected. I watch a lot of people in the park walking and exercising and biking, and I come up to work and I think how nice it would be for people to just be on the farm and be physical on top of education. That if you think about benefiting from an action, you benefit from it. If you think about stretching and exercising and bending and lifting as a benefit while you're doing it, instead of thinking it as laborious, you're going to benefit from it. So the health aspect of farming, cultivating, gardening, connecting to the food and beverage industry, hospitality, there's so many intertwining paths that lead us back to the same thing, which is really celebrating life, being together as a community, and the one thing that we all enjoy doing, eating and connecting and socializing and being a part of something bigger than ourselves.
That's so awesome. I have, I think, 3 more questions for you. and I'll probably pop in just one other one, but because you and I could talk forever. I say that to all of my guests, but it's so true. I love learning about different things, and that's why I have everybody come on the show. But climate change, and you're adopting the Silvo practice of farming, et cetera. But have you, in the 18 months that you've been there, and then again in the farming that you've done in the past, how has this farm adopted to changes in the climate or market demand over the years? And I think none of your food goes outside of the restaurant, correct? You don't sell it.
No, not at this point.
Okay.
There's been discussions about doing a CSA, but I think right now we're concentrating on our own kitchens and our own experiences. Mm-hmm. We are a part of a very large park, the Natirar Park, that you drive through before you get up to the top of 90 acres. And our facility is a huge ecosystem that we are contributing to. So they are building up that park kind of the same way we're building up this farm. They're adding more trees, more shade. They're building a wildlife reserve path for people to walk through for educational purposes. They're taking care of their great lawns for community experiences. And then as you come up the hill to the top of the property where the farm and the restaurants are, you realize you're a part of a very large ecosystem. And the extension of what we're connected to is to honor the fact that all of this property was preserved by the previous owner. So our kind of quick history timeline is Kate Macy Ladd and her family bought the property, which was hundreds of acres back in the 1800s, and created their estate. And they wound up never having any children. So she offered the property for wellness for the first time back in the early 1900s, which was very forward thinking. And women that couldn't afford to go to rehab when they got out of the hospitals were allowed to come up to this property and heal and take care of themselves.
Wow.
So when Bob and Kim Wardowitz had this vision of this property to create a new wellness destination, it was very well known in our area. I mean, it was something that we were all looking forward to seeing come to fruition, that we were going to have this table on the farm, restaurant experience and destination that was connecting to this beautiful park that we had all been enjoying for many years. When I had the opportunity of meeting Bob and Kim, and they offered me the opportunity to grow the farm and create more immersion for the rest of the property, it was humbling, to say the least. And so the stewardship of what I do is really my purpose up here. It doesn't feel like a job or a career. It feels like a bigger purpose. And to give that to other people that come up here, or to inspire other people to come up here, is just a natural, easy way to be happy and live your life.
That's awesome. I love it. Now I just need to do that in my forest spine here, right? If the homeowners association would allow me to. Yeah.
Tracy, I've been on your website. I had no idea who you were or what you did. And just reading a few things about what your mission is, it's inspiring for me as well.
Thank you. You're appreciate welcome. That.
It really is. It's just nice so that there's people that always want to implement an educational concept to the things we do on a daily basis.
Right. Exactly. Because food and beverages in our lives are 100% of the day, and what we do with it, how we harvest it, how we grow it, and how we dispose of it is really important to the eating at a meeting and just our daily lives. So yeah.
And it affects
so I
all
want to
of
know.
us.
It does. Yeah, it does. But we don't think about it because we just take it for granted that we have food, right? And some people don't have food.
It's routine.
Yeah, it's routine. And there's a lot of people who do not have food. So we have to think about how we can help them at the same time. All right. So I want to know, what are some of your favorite dishes that come out of the kitchen based on what you grow on the farm?
Some of my favorite dishes, I would say our pizzas are really amazing. We have toppings galore that you could imagine that they utilize. And sometimes they'll even crack one of our free-range eggs on top, and the egg will just cook on the cooked pizza. It's really amazing, a beautiful presentation, and it tastes amazing. I love anything veggie based. They're introducing some new spring dishes, a roasted cauliflower dish with cashew whip. They're doing a roasted carrot that they do a few different processes to it, and then they grill it, and it's on a chickpea hummus with mint and basil. So through in their dishes, and I'm not a vegetarian, but I'll tell you, I could be with the way that they cook and eat. It's amazing.
Okay, so actually on that note, because you said hummus, are you growing beans as well?
Yes. So we have legumes. We've got fava beans. We've got some long bean, different peas. We've got a couple different dragon's tongue, I think is one of them. These varieties that the chefs pick. Another great opportunity for them, I might have mentioned it when we were doing the tour, is that we'll utilize some of the raised beds that are very small little plots. And the chefs can experiment with seed that they're not quite sure what the product's going to be like. So we'll experiment with the small little area. We'll cultivate, produce that product, bring it into the kitchen. And then if they love it, we can throw it in a crop line, or we could utilize it into our next round of cultivating in whatever season that is. So that's been really fun too, because we've had the opportunity to purchase seeds that production farm probably wouldn't be playing around with.
Okay, that makes sense. Because you're small enough to be able to do that without growing a big, huge crop, right? Yeah.
Yeah, again, our production farm is about producing for specific kitchens. So it's a little out of the box than a normal production farm. Right. And you want to create the proper yields. And again, like we've said numerous times, you don't want to have a lot of waste. So you want to make sure that you're growing the amount that you need to. But again, to have that kind of fun, experimental, artistic play with some variety of seed that a farmer normally wouldn't put in a crop row is a lot of fun out here. And it expands everybody's palate on what things taste like or how they hold up. So for now and moving into the next couple of years, I see a lot happening as far as experimenting, changing, utilizing product, doing some horticulture, growing on our rooftop over at the hotel, maybe on top of that new kitchen. So the sky's the limit when it comes to doing things like this.
That's so fun. Okay, to close this out, I want to wrap up all of everything that we've talked about and have you put it in one answer. What does safe, sustainable, and inclusive mean to you when we're talking about food and beverage?
I think those three words encapsulate how to take product and make sure there's nothing left by the time you're done with it. I'll give you one example. We will take certain leafy greens and we'll bring them into the kitchen, and there might be some holes in them. They might not look attractive. People think that everything to look gorgeous, but we can take those excesses and we can juice them. And we can chop them if they don't look beautiful and add them into something that you're not focusing on that product, or we can reutilize it for our animals. But I think it's about taking something from the earth and making sure there's nothing left when we're done with it.
Oh, I love that. And that's just a brilliant concept too of like, oh, I don't want to put that piece of spinach on the plate because it's got a hole in it. Well, then chop the spinach up. I'm like, that's easy enough, right? Yeah.
Yep. Right. Right. It's going to look different. Mm-hmm. I know everybody says we eat with our eyes first, but this is about thinking outside the box again and saying there's no reason why we can't use the leaf, the stem, the root, the entire vegetable.
Exactly. And I actually had a conversation about the stems of spinach a couple of weeks ago on the show. And I'm like, I just throw those into my freezer bag and use them to make my vegetable stock. If I don't want to put them on the plate, do that.
I think a lot of the product and waste that our kitchens have is absolutely because of the way it looks. And if that is a hindrance, then we just need to be a little more thoughtful on what we can do with the stuff that might not look pretty, still has nutrients and vitamins and the ability to be food product for our culture in general.
Yeah. Awesome. Melinda Hopkins, you are a wonderful woman. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure. And here is the website for the farm, natirar.com. And I finally learned how to say it. I'm so glad that I was able to learn how to say that.
It is Raritan River. It is so the Raritan River runs through our park, and it is Raritan backwards.
Okay. All right. And then you can connect with Melinda on LinkedIn.
Natirar is the destination.
Okay. Awesome. Well, very cool. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining in. We had everybody listening to us. I appreciate you being here and learning from Melinda, and hopefully that you can take some of the things that you learned from this and add it to your own property or incorporate it into your own events, no matter where you are. But actually go up to Natirar and take a cooking class up there. Take your people up to meet Melinda in New Jersey. It was a beautiful experience. Until next time, I will be back next week. Starts May, which is Food Allergy Awareness Month and Celiac Disease Awareness Month. So the entire month will be focused on that. So stay tuned. Next week, I have a woman who's allergic to quite a few things to talk to us about how she manages going to events. So until next time, stay safe and eat well. And Melinda, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everybody, thank you. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.